Hi everybody, welcome to Reading with Mrs. DeGagne. Today I'm going to read you a story that, well, I gotta admit, sometimes makes me a little hungry for potato pancakes. So today I'm reading you Moishe's Miracle, a Hanukkah story by Laura Krauss Melmond and illustrated by David Slonim. Starlight, star bright, magic on a winter's night, white snow, candle glow, far away and long ago. In the poor village of Wishniak lived a milkman named Moishe and his wife, Bila. Since he owned only 2 cows, Moishe earned a meager living. Still, he was known as a generous man, always ready to help his neighbors. Bila scrubbed and cooked and tried to scrape together a few kopecks for a nice Sabbath meal. But oi, how she could scold! Everyone said she had the sharpest tongue in Wishniak and little patience for Moishe's generous ways. It was early winter, and already the wind prowled the icy lanes of the village like a starving jackal. Many were feeling the pangs of hunger. Malka, the widow, and her ailing son Shmuel. Heshi Fenster, out of work, with his wife expecting their 13th child. Frail Bubby Rivka, housebound with her calico cat. Moishe left an extra quart of milk here, a pint of thick cream there. On the night before the holiday of Hanukkah was to begin, Bila untied her knipple, the knot in her handkerchief in which she kept their money, and shook the handkerchief in Moishe's face. Empty, all because of your foolish generosity. How will I buy the eggs and flour to make our Hanukkah latkes, much less the oil to fry them in? Moishe imagined coins falling from the handkerchief into Bila's pan, where they turned into golden potato pancakes. He could almost smell those latkes frying. Oh well, he thought with a sigh, we ought to be thankful for what we have. Bilela, don't fret, he soothed. There are enough onions and potatoes for a nice pot of soup. But Bila would not listen. How did I end up with this schlemiel when I could have married the baker's son? On and on she scolded, hands on her hips and eyes rolled heavenward, until Moishe fled to the cowshed for some peace. He flopped down in the straw. How sleepy he felt. Moishe, Moishe. The milkman sat up suddenly. Rubbing his eyes, he looked around to see who was calling him. Imagine his astonishment when he found out it was one of his cows. You have always cared well for us, Moishe. You keep our shed clean, milk us on time, and feed us plenty. Most assuredly, chimed in the other cow. So, although we seldom reveal to humans our power to speak, we want to help you, dear Moishe. While you were asleep here tonight, the first cow went on, a stranger came to the shed. For hours he entertained us with tales of magic and adventure. You snored loudly all the while. But before leaving, he hid a gift for you, there, under the straw. She pointed with her velvety black nose. For me? Moishe reached down and felt something cold and hard. He pulled out a battered frying pan encrusted with grease. An old pan? He tried not to show his disappointment. But such a pan, exclaimed the second cow. According to the stranger, you have only to set it upon the fire, totally empty, and it will produce as many delicious Hanukkah latkes as you wish. Latkes by the dozens, latkes by the hundreds will appear until you remove the pan from the stove. Just remember the stranger's warning. To Moishe, this gift was given, and only Moishe must use it. Moishe was overjoyed. He showered thanks on the cows and milked them, for it was early morning. Then he returned to the house and hid the frying pan on top of the wardrobe, intending to surprise his wife with it later on. That evening, Moishe and Bila lit the first Hanukkah candle with the shamas, the candle used to light the others. They would add a candle to the menorah on each of the 8 nights of Hanukkah. With the menorah glowing in the window, Moishe took down the magic frying pan and told Bila all that had happened in the cowshed, being careful to repeat the stranger's warning. Of course, Bila believed not a word of Moishe's story. I have never heard of anything so meshuggah in all my life, she scoffed. A pan is a pan. Nevertheless, Moishe placed the pan over the fire. A lively sizzle filled the air. Soon the rich aroma of potatoes and onions frying made Moishe's nose twitch and Bila's mouth water. And then there were latkes, plump as little pillows, with edges like golden lace. The latkes were so light they floated right into the air as they finished cooking. Bila and Moishe leapt about the kitchen, catching them. When each had a plateful, Moishe removed the pan from the fire. Then he and Bila ate their fill and went to bed. How Moishe tossed and turned that night, twisting the coverlet into knots. Perhaps he had eaten too many latkes. In his dreams, he saw Shmuel and Bubby Rivka, the calico cat and the fenster brood. They marched around his bed, holding empty plates and staring at him with hungry eyes. The next morning, Moishe left a note on every doorstep. Happy Hanukkah! Please come for latkes tonight at Moishe the milkman's. It seemed that all of Wishniak squeezed into Moishe and Bila's little house that night. Latkes galore sailed from the magic pan. There was singing and dancing to Heshi's accordion, and the children spun dreidels, little Hanukkah tops. Only Bila stood apart, shaking her head. Moishe was giving things away as usual and making a mess of her house. If she could just get rid of him for a while, she would take matters into her own hands. The next day, Bila hid the Hanukkah candles under the bed. Moishe, there are 6 more days of Hanukkah left, and all our candles are gone, she wailed. Then she sent him off to borrow some from her sister in the next village. She knew it would take him hours to walk there and back. As soon as the door banged shut, Bila made a sign and hung it in the window. Bila's Cafe, luscious latkes, 1 kopek each. She took down the frying pan. Of course, she remembered Moishe's words about the stranger's warning. To Moishe this gift was given, and only Moishe must use it. But why shouldn't the magic work for her too? After all, she was his wife. Bila placed the pan over the fire. There was the sizzling sound. It grew louder and louder as she waited for the perfume of frying latkes to reach her nose. But instead, a burning odor filled the kitchen. Bila pushed the pan away from the flame, but the smell grew stronger, catching in her throat. A plume of smoke uncoiled like a gray serpent. Dipping up some water, Bila flung it into the pan. Hiss! The water splattered everywhere, and before she could blink, each droplet changed into a hairy little demon with pointy ears and a forked tail. The creatures danced around and around Bila, giggling and pelting her with burnt latkes. Then, climbing onto the chairs and the table, they shook empty handkerchiefs in her face. Bila spun this way and that until she was dizzy, but she could not escape them. Just as she swooned to the floor, the door opened. In blew Moishe on a cold draft. He was followed by Wishniak's own rabbi and his wife, the Rebbitzin, whom Moishe had chanced to meet on his way out of town. It was the Rebbitzin who sold candles to the villagers, and she had kindly given Moishe enough candles to last the rest of the holiday. Moishe, in turn, had invited the couple home for latkes. The demons took one look at the rabbi, shrieked in terror, jumped back into the pan, and vanished instantly in a belch of smoke. Bila was brought back to her senses by a whiff of the Rebbitzin smelling salts. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. The demons had scared her speechless. Forever grateful to Moishe for saving her, Bila took time from her housework to help with the milking. She fed the cows and cleaned the shed. With his newfound love of cooking and entertaining, Moishe prepared meals and cared for the house. By the end of Hanukkah, Bila had found that she could speak again, in a voice so kind that even the cows conversed with her. From then on, Moishe and Bila were seen delivering the milk together. As for the magic frying pan, even back in Moishe's hands, it refused to make another pancake. So instead of sitting on top of the wardrobe, it was sealed in a display case in the rabbi's courtyard. But the fame of his latkes and the tale of its demons spread, and soon folks were traveling from far and wide to see it. Everyone hoped to see the demons under glass, making a surprise appearance, and sometimes they did. The visitors to Wishniak needed food and lodging, heels for their boots, and hay for their horses. Soon the village grew into a bustling market town where no one went hungry. And for years to come, even on the coldest Hanukkah night, candles burned brightly in the windows, and the smell of frying latkes rose over the houses in a golden haze that seemed to reach the stars. Snow on the rooftops, milk in the pail. That is the end of this Hanukkah tale. So, I think I am going to make a batch of latkes because they sound delicious and I can't wait to smell the smells of cooking potatoes and onions. And I'm going to think about what the Shabbat means and about Hanukkah and all the wonderful gifts we have. So, I hope you enjoy your day, and I'll see you next time on Reading with Mrs. DeGagne. Bye!